Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Animal Law Academy at the Animal Legal Defense Fund. My name is Priscilla Rader. I'm the Education Program Manager here, and with me is Kathleen Schatzman, our Senior Legislative Affairs Manager. Today launches our 2020 Animal Law Summer School program. We'll have 4 webinars throughout this summer talking about how to advocate for animals with or without a law degree. So we do have handouts available that include further readings. This was emailed out earlier today, but you can also go to aldf.org/webinars, click on today's webinar and see all the handouts. We will be doing a Q&A at the very end. You can submit your questions through the dashboard. If you're not seeing that for some reason, it might be collapsed. You can click that orange arrow and it should expand it. If you are calling through your phone or you're unable to locate that questions box, please feel free to submit your questions at webinars@aldf.org and we'll get them into the mix. But all of that out of the way, let's go on to why we're all here, talking about how to advocate for animals, whether you're a law professional, a law student, an advocate, no legal experience, all the legal experience, you can help. So please join me in welcoming Kathleen Schatzman. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Priscilla, and welcome everyone. We are so glad that you could join us today for our Lobbying for Animals webinar. I'm saying my brief hello now because I'm going to take myself off of camera while we go through the presentation, and then I will rejoin you at the end to answer any questions that you may have. So with that, we can begin. For those of you who are relatively new to animal advocacy, I hope you had a chance to join us for the Lobby 101 presentation, which was given a few weeks ago. Today, we're going to build upon some of those basic principles that we learned in the program in this, which is being dubbed as our Lobby 2.0. So while I'm just gonna go in there. Okay, while enacting a law is always our primary objective, depending on the political climate in your state, passing an animal protection bill may be unlikely. However, there can be other reasons to introduce legislation, such as creating messaging opportunities, developing elected officials and coalition supporters, or raising public awareness. And there are many ways to define the success of a legislative campaign. Passage is not always the only one, but it is certainly our ultimate goal. So our agenda for today, in this webinar, we're going to walk through a campaign using a retail sales ban to address puppy mills as the example, but it is more the process that we're going to focus on and your role specifically in lobbying for animals. So please note that I may be speaking in more of a general term about bill introduction, legislative strategies to move the bill, how to generate support and momentum through message development and communication, methods of strategic targeting, and ending with the all-important call to action. But first, it wouldn't be a proper Lobbying for Animals presentation without acknowledging you and your willingness to participate in the legislative process. You have arguably the most powerful and persuasive voice, especially at the state level, where you are a constituent and can establish more of a personal relationship with your legislators and their staff. Excuse me. We know that legislative advocacy is one of the most proactive ways that you can create lasting, impactful change for animals, but that involves outreach and action, some that may push you outside of your comfort zone. But if we all listen to Bill Murray, be assured that you can do this. All right, so let's get started. To begin, you have to know the issue. I think you may all know the definition of a puppy mill, but let's review. A puppy mill generally refers to large-scale commercial dog breeding facilities where the emphasis is on profits over the welfare of the dogs. The goal of puppy mills is to produce the largest number of puppies as quickly as possible without consideration of genetic quality or the care of the animals. When speaking with legislators, press, or even just friends and family, it's important to have a clear and concise description of the issue. If you're going to make a call, attend a meeting, or testify, it really is imperative to develop your talking point or points, which should only really consist of about 1 or 2 sentences. For this definition, you can further condense the paragraph and only utilize the first sentence. A puppy mill generally refers to a large-scale commercial dog breeding facility where the emphasis is on profits over the welfare of the dogs. That shortened version makes it even easier to remember, yet provides a clear snapshot of the puppy mill industry. So regardless of which issue you're championing, take the time to practice your messaging and your delivery, as it will make it so much easier to recall when the time comes for your actual outreach. And if you are super uncomfortable with having to memorize any information, you certainly don't have to. You can print out a fact sheet from our website and simply highlight the information that you want to convey. Legislators don't expect you to be the subject matter expert, but we do want you to be as well versed as possible on the issue to feel comfortable articulating why we need to address the issue and enact change. So now that we know the problem, what is the solution? In this case, it would be a retail sales ban. Such laws make it illegal for pet stores to sell dogs and cats, and sometimes rabbits, sourced from large-scale commercial breeders, and instead require them to offer animals available for adoption from animal shelters and rescue groups. What's awesome is that more than 300 cities and counties, as well as 2 states, being California and Maryland, have passed such laws already, which is super exciting. And there are also a number of states that have or had bills introduced to tackle the puppy mill issue. But as you can imagine, there's not been much legislation moving in 2020 other than response efforts due to the global pandemic. But regardless of the issue, we always need to bring forward a solution. Even better, if we can provide draft language for legislators and their staff to review. It really does help to expedite the process. An important note here is that as an advocate, you will very likely be lobbying on state bills with a national organization such as ours, or a coalition of local and national groups, and not independently. That is, unless you have some really great connections and you can move the bill for us, that would be awesome. But we do often work together as coalitions on issues that are of priority to us, such as puppy mills, animal legal status, ending wildlife killing contests, animals used in research, ag-gag, etc. And so once we had that solution, I do say this tongue-in-cheek, the bill introduction is as easy as 1, 2, 3. We know that only legislators can introduce bills, so we really must first find someone who is willing to champion the issue. And in this case, we're going with our retail sales ban. We find legislators by researching the various committees and their members who have shown interest in the issue, or reach out to other legislators who've supported animal protection in the past. Ideally, we want a legislator who's introducing the bill because they really do believe in the issue and will actively work to move the bill. There's also a bit of bill strategy even before a bill is introduced, and that comes in the form of a committee assignment. Most bills cannot be enacted into law until they've been referred to, acted upon, and are returned from a standing committee in each house. So predetermining which committee the bill may be referred to is an important strategy. In the case of a retail sales ban, we can ask the bill sponsor to have discussions with the chair of, say, the Commerce Committee. framing the bill as a consumer protection issue and less about animals to avoid being referred to an agriculture committee, where they may not always view our positions and issues favorably, and this could also greatly improve our chances for passage. Now, after identifying and securing the legislator, the sponsor, oftentimes the Animal Legal Defense Fund will work with their policy staff to draft that state-specific version of the bill. We can provide supporting materials, facts, and guidance to their office. Since our organization would be considered a stakeholder in the process, it is customary for us to review the draft bill before and after it goes to the state's Office of Legislative Services to ensure that the final language generates the intended outcome. You would think that's a no-brainer, but we really do need to have eyes on a bill. Things, just one may becomes a shall, and things are screwy. So we really do need to ensure that we are part of that process. Wonderful. Now that the bill language is finalized, the sponsor is going to introduce the bill. It's giving the bill number and refer to a committee. So we have our retail sales ban. But wait, because there's more. Here comes your part of this process. Is your legislator the sponsor? If so, we would ask that you reach out to thank them for their leadership on such an important issue. If not, is your legislator on the committee which the bill has been referred to? If so, you could and should schedule a meeting to ask for the legislator to support and co-sponsor the bill and vote yes when it is posted for a committee hearing. Now, even better if your legislator is the chair of the committee, when you can urge the chairperson to swiftly post the bill. If not the sponsor of the bill, nor on the committee, is your legislator in a leadership position? If so, you can still urge them to co-sponsor and support the bill. That ask will always remain the same. But in addition, you can ask if they will support the issue in caucus meetings and allow the bill to be posted in committee. As a constituent, you can ask these questions. They're the same questions we would ask, and here's hoping that your legislator and their staff will be more apt to disclose their position with you should they hold back providing information to us. That's why it's so important for you to connect with your legislators on a regular basis to strengthen your relationship and keep the issues that are important to you at the forefront of their minds. Of course, this would be done in both houses, the state Senate and the state assembly, unless, of course, you're Nebraska, in which case you only have a state Senate. And of course, don't forget to sign up for their newsletter, join their Facebook page, and follow them on Twitter. So we come to legislative strategy, and building a campaign to pass a policy issue requires several crucial elements: a winning message, reliable allies, knowledge of the legislative and political landscape, and teamwork. Perhaps more than anything else, it really requires organization and coordination. It helps to develop a timeline, an operational plan, one that is often flexible and dynamic, because we all know that the best laid plans often go astray, and some things will likely change as the bill progresses. But whatever our policy goal, whether it's advocating for laws that protect the lives and interests of animals or opposing legislation that would be detrimental to animals' well-being, we need a strong legislative strategy. Determining who holds the power and how you gain access to them is critical to make the case to support the passage of our bill. We need to know the demographics of the state legislature, identify and focus on legislators who are in leadership, chair key committees, or are historically supportive of our issues. Or in the case of that retail sales ban, who has supported consumer protections before? We find them and we hold informational meetings with those legislators and or their staff, which we would absolutely encourage you to attend and participate in. So we're just going to circle back now to the committee meetings, because once we have our legislators identified, once we know the committee that it's going to be heard in, we really do try to orchestrate when we can. And your testimony is such an essential component to any movement that's going to be had at the State House. So it's important to really note this as well, that not all states have committees that allow public testimony, but if they do, this is where we all come in. Organizations, members of the public, and we submit written or verbal testimony in support or opposition of the bill. Oftentimes, a coalition will work together to coordinate those talking points so the testimony is not repetitive, and we highlight an advocate's testimony as the clincher. You're a constituent, you're taking the time off of work or out of your day, this is important to you, and they listen. So it's really, having you there is so extraordinarily important. And that's why it's so important to ensure that you have a presence at those hearings and the votes. Even if you don't testify, it really is so important to have as many advocates as possible at the Capitol as a sign of broad constituent support. And then, of course, the committee will vote to pass, hold, or vote down a bill. Now, most often, those committee chairs are part of the majority party, and they have a majority of members. If the chair allows the bill to be posted, he or she already has an idea of how it's going to be voted upon. Once it passes out of committee or committees, should it happen to then go to, say, the Budget Committee or some other committee prior to being heard on the full Senate or Assembly for a floor vote. We usually have an idea of which way the vote will go based on our conversations with the bill sponsor, who in turn has discussed the bill movement in caucus with his or her peers. But it is really prudent for us to call legislators and ask for their position on the bill and count the votes. Then we can put a little extra pressure on the legislators who might need to hear from constituents to vote our way. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more, because strategic targeting is important. There may be times when a bill gets hung up. It could be a specific legislator, perhaps it's the committee chair or the Speaker of the House or Senate President that either don't think that this is an important issue or have concerns over specific language in the bill. Or we could even hear rumblings that the governor might need to hear more or have more outreach from the public. So in the case of a retail sales ban, you might also have a legislator that has a pet store that sells puppy mill puppies in their district. If they do, we have to assess their stance. They may need some political camouflage by the way of public outreach to justify voting our way. Or they may never vote with us, but acknowledge that they support the issue, in which case we work around them. And this is really when we, as a collective group, get creative. First, we have to identify who of our allies, both organizations and individuals, are constituents of those key elected officials in the targeted districts. Depending on how heavy-handed we may need to be, we can use all, which rarely happens, or just a select few of the following tactics. Disclaimer, I just want to say all of which should be adhering to social distancing and COVID-19 protocols. So we could hand out flyers or fact sheets on the bill at either animal-friendly stores, such as a pet-friendly restaurant, or even a shelter in the district. We could create custom brochures to mail to residents in that district with specific messaging on the issue, noting the inaction or even opposition of the legislator. We can mail postcards or cards with handwritten notes from constituents directly to those legislators. We could phone bank, flood the office with calls from their constituents. We could gather petition signatures outside of local stores or public locations with permission, of course. We do everything above board. The Animal Legal Defense Fund can send a geo-targeted action alert. If we're really interested and intent on getting our message out and have deep pockets on a particular issue, we can try to sway the legislator or even the full legislature by posting a billboard, one in a highly visible area that can be seen coming and going, and they can't escape the message. We could also develop online radio and print ads to air on either political sites or stations. And what's super important yet a bit underrated are letters to the editor. Even in a small paper, noting your disappointment in your legislator's action, or again, inaction, can be quite powerful. And any media that is published can be added to a campaign packet, which can only strengthen our argument. A campaign packet, for those who haven't been involved in a campaign before, it's simply a folder that has copies of all of our documents that we compile as we move through the campaign, fact sheets, press, white papers, anything that will help us with our argument to pass the bill. And again, we share this with legislators or press. Op-eds. It can be written by an expert or professional who lives in the legislator's district or by a leader of a national organization and submitted to ideally the state's largest paper. And then there are events. We want to invite your legislator to attend rallies, protests, or tabling, within the community, all of which is quite press worthy. And it most certainly will not paint the legislator in the best light to say that they were asked to attend but declined. They would then have to answer why. Why are they declining? Why are they against what we are for? So it just puts them in an awkward position. And then there's social media targeting. As a constituent, you can ask your legislator to support the bill by posting the request on a social media platform and tagging your legislator. You can also tag anyone that you know in the district and even tag local state media in your post. That's a heavy post, but if you want the attention, boy, you put all of those names in there and the legislator will take notice. It's important also as we go through a campaign to use one main hashtag as a landing to show all of the actions on the issue, such as hashtag ban puppy mills. And again, to get just a little bit more creative, depending on the time of the year, you can even use holidays. Is it Mother's Day or Father's Day? Ask your legislator to end the suffering of male and female breeding dogs at puppy mills. Is it July 4th? Tell your legislator it is simply un-American not to support a retail sales ban and protect puppies. Halloween, and I can go on for days, so I promise I only have one or two more. Halloween, carve the number into a pumpkin, your bill number into a pumpkin, and take a picture. Post it and tag your legislator urging support for that bill. I think as long as your outreach is respectful and on point, you're only limited by your imagination. And of course, for the time that we live in right now, we can even customize masks. And on one side, it could say pass. And on the other side, it can say, have the bill number. And you can take a picture of that with your family and again, post on the legislator's site. You know, all of the outreach that we do will be carefully and strategically coordinated, either by the lead organization or by the coalition. And that's done because we just have the ability to capture a larger audience and ensure a good showing. Now, these are, again, a few examples, but I think it exemplifies just how many ways there are for us to work together to move a bill or move a legislator on a bill. And then we have messaging development and communication. This is so exciting because we create the buzz, we build the momentum, and we sustain the chatter about the bill. That's all within our control and our efforts. Once we've mapped out the legislative campaign plan, it's time to initiate the public campaign, and this means press. It's when we begin working with media, conducting online and social media advocacy. Oftentimes a press conference is a great media opportunity that can coincide with the introduction of the bill. We can host legislative briefings, events at the Capitol. Again, you know, I know that in these times, there are not any hearings that were many hearings that are happening at state houses. But if we look forward to the future for 2021, I do hope that we'll have the ability to meet in person again. But even if it's disseminating our material online to legislators and their staff, having a Zoom meeting with a legislator or GoTo or Skype or any other platform, we can still meet face to face. We can still have webinars and invite legislators to be on and hold a press-worthy event. So, you know, all of this is to say that we have multiple opportunities to engage the press and the media, and every step of a campaign is an opportunity. If there's any significant movement or legislative action, bill introduction is noteworthy. If it passes out of committee, it's noteworthy. Passes out of one house, send another, you know, press release. You know, every step of the way, we want to keep our issue in the news. We also want to ensure that we have creative ways for individuals or our allied organizations to get involved and show those grassroots and grass top support, such as hosting those community events to demonstrate community support for the legislation, not just organization support. You may also participate in, like you yourself, not just in, you know, us as representatives of an organization, can participate in panels or give your own presentations to publicize a bill. It could be at your local library. It could be on a certain group that you're affiliated with, your book club. It could be anything, any group that you're affiliated with could provide opportunity for you to present and publicize the bill. And of course, timing the release of all of this, which could also include a sign-on letter or those petitions, can be helpful to sustain momentum, showing that we have the support of constituents and experts alike. We can also use, again, any of those actions from the previous page in a modified form at any point during a campaign to generate press. I was actually going to mention at the beginning of this slide when we talk about creating buzz and chatter and you know, publicity. Honestly, quick tip is it's all in the camera angle. It is so easy to create the illusion of grandeur. If you have 5 people, you know, at an event or in your yard or, you know, online, take a screenshot of it and you could allude to others. You could, you know, show a camera a selfie and it will look like there's so many more people, like it was a packed room. It really is not very difficult to create a buzz about our bill. So we hope that you'll partner with us on that. And then we come to the all-important sphere of influence, your sphere of influence. Never underestimate who you know. People often don't think about their network, but if you even just expand a degree of separation or two, you may have a vast network indeed that you never really took the time to think about. As an example, I wrote a few down here, but there are so many other questions and ways to try to think about folks that you know and how that network can be applied to the bill at hand. Do you know, or someone that you know, have a relationship with organizations that may support this issue, even if it's outside of the animal movement, who could be a good ally, coalition member? Maybe they share similar views and can assist with bill movement, social justice, not for the retail sales ban, but say for cross-reporting bill. Are you affiliated with a domestic violence organization? Do you know anyone who works for a state agency? There are so many outside groups that we could tap into that are not part of animal welfare, and we just have to take a moment to think about that. Also, do you have connections with the governor, state or local legislators, or their staff? Maybe someone that you grew up with, their child was a poli-sci major and they're interning or just got a job with a state legislator. Would they be willing to advocate for this bill? Take in the fact sheet, talk it up a little bit. Do you live in the same town as the governor? Do you go to the same gym, or did you go to the same gym? But just thinking about all of those connections and connectors. Do you know any celebrities? Honestly, it could be A, B, or Z. It doesn't matter. They don't have to be like superstar celebrities. Any celebrity can pull in press. They could be athletes, singers, artists, actors. Do you know any influential community members? And those folks could be farmers, veterinarians, faith leaders, business owners, or some other professional. Maybe they head up Chamber of Commerce. Maybe they head up, your business association. If you're super close with them, you can ask them if you could take a moment of time during the next meeting and talk about this bill, or if they would be willing to bring it forward to their group or talk to their staff, again, if they're faith leaders, to their congregation. Also, do you have friends or family who are in key legislative districts? Even if you don't live in a targeted district, to someone it could be brother, sister, cousin, good friend, maybe not a great friend, somebody on Facebook, and do they live in a district? Make the ask. The only way that it's a sure no is if they say no. Otherwise, we'll never know if you don't ask folks if they will help us take action on our issues. And then, of course, anyone working in the corporate arena. It could be somebody in a VP, a leadership position. Maybe they're the owner of a corporation who owns a pet food or coming back to retail sales ban. Do they own a pet food or supply company? Would they write a support letter? There's so many work questions, such as, do you volunteer at a local shelter or animal rescue organization? Would they be willing to host an event to educate the public or gather signatures or invite the press? We can still do things outside if we're, again, following protocol, if there's enough room. So there may still be opportunity for us to have outdoor events over the summer. But again, this is at your comfort level. And then do you know organizers of events where we may want a table at to further our retail sales ban? If there are any events happening, again, it doesn't have to be this summer, it could be next year. Is there going to be a state fair? Do you know the folks that put that on? Can we get a table there? Would you table there for us and share information? Even if there's one person that came to mind while we were talking about this that you can connect with, it could honestly be the game changer for the campaign. So with your help and connections, we can work to ensure that not only does this bill move, but that we garner enough support that the governor signs the bill into law. Now, I think it's really important for us to just take a moment to talk about opposition, because even on bills that have overwhelming bipartisan support, you're going to have industries and individuals who don't want things to change. And they're going to continue to abuse animals if we don't enact laws to protect them. So legislators often ask if we've reached out to opposition to find a compromise on a particular issue. And at the Animal Legal Defense Fund, we do make that effort. However, we would recommend that you not actively look to engage with opposition unless it's part of a designed campaign strategy to respond to attacks, to help learn from any relevant points that are brought up by the opposition. You know, in doing so, we can strengthen our messaging and make it harder for the opposition to succeed. And or by responding in an intelligent, rational manner so that we can increase the general public recognition that you and we act professionally. You know, we don't want you to ever remain silent either. I'm just saying don't actively look to engage, because interaction with opposition can distract from our objective. It really does use a lot of our energy, our resources that could be better served convincing legislators that the issues they champion are publicly supported and in the best interest of their constituency and public at large. We have a few links to share with you to gain an understanding of the current laws in your state. We always recommend that you begin by reviewing the Animal Legal Defense Fund annual state rankings reports, and of course visit aldf.org to sign up for our alerts and receive the latest news. And while you're there, please sign the No More Puppy Mills pledge. I don't think I have it on here, but my incredible colleague Elizabeth Holtz recently presented on a retail pet sales ban webinar, which was focused on local legislation. And there are handouts related to that issue, which you can use. It talks about a retail sales ban as a whole. So it's not just specific for local legislation, it can also be used for state legislation. And our recap, we've walked through the steps of a campaign, and I hope you know now just how important your role is as an advocate. We've truly covered the gamut of campaign tools that can be used, showing that you have the ability to participate on so many levels, from simply sharing an action alert, to testifying in committee, to coordinating a rally with press. And we know that many of you come with some significant talent and experience. And I think through your efforts and connections, it really could be key to the success of any campaign. So while I have this here, the research, lobbying, and campaign actions, you know, each one of those steps, if you can do even one, every bit counts. And I think one of the most important things is just establishing a relationship with your legislator, so that it could be today, even if there's not a lot of bill movement happening now, this is when we really want you to solidify the relationship so we can jump into action when there is bill movement. And of course, we do recognize that this is quite a bit of information, but the Animal Legal Defense Fund has expanded our legislative affairs program, and there are 5 of us now that can answer any questions that you may have regarding legislation or the legislative process in your state. This is Kim Kelly on the bottom left, director of the program, upper left, Stephanie Harris, Alicia Progoski, myself, or Jennifer Haig. And I'm going to leave you with this. The broadest and maybe the most meaningful definition of volunteering: doing more than you have to because you want to in a cause you consider good. We are so appreciative of your time and efforts, precisely because we know that you don't have to help protect the lives and advance the interests of animals. You want to do this meaningful work. We're grateful for that and hope that this presentation empowers you to use your gifts to benefit the animals, our organization, and the work that you so deeply care about. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. We'll now move on to Q&A. Quite a few questions already, so I'll just get going. Bridget's wondering if she wants to contact or tag a legislature, what is the bill number that they'll need to know? Is that the House bill, the Senate bill? What's the difference? How does it work?
Yeah, oh, great question. Well, I don't know if we have the link up for the Lobby 101 presentation. I would recommend that you just take a look at that. It does talk about the legislative process. So what we try to capitalize on, and we don't always introduce a bill, but we'll jump onto the bill if we see that something was introduced. And it depends on which house is moving the bill. Is there more traction in the Senate? Is the Senate sponsor either more active? Did he initiate the bill or she initiate the bill? And so if it's the Senate that we're hearing maybe posting the bill in committee, that's the bill number that we're going to focus on, and not both House bills. We just want to focus on a single bill at a time as it makes its way through the legislature. It's just easier and less burdensome. If it's the Senate bill that's moving and you're reaching out to assembly members, they're going to say, why are you sending me this? There's nothing I can do right now. So it really is best to be timely with our asks.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Phyllis is wondering, so she's a newbie at this. Thank you. Welcome. Happy to have you. What is the best way to track legislation? So for example, there was a bill in Florida that would have made sure that the best interests of animals are represented in court. She was having that bill tracked. It was moving, then died in committee. She's wondering, how could she have been better on top of what was happening to try to prevent that from happening, from it dying?
Yeah. Well, sure, absolutely, and welcome, Phyllis. Absolutely, I think that really is a great question. It's a two-pronged answer. One, I hope you already know Alicia Pergoski. She covers the state of Florida. I think you're talking about the Courtroom Animal Advocate Program bill. So Alicia, of course, has been working on introduction with that, bill movement on that. We have a lobbyist as well that we work with in Florida specific. So we really do have great connections there. But for yourself, if you would like to track it, reach out. You can, again, as a resident of any state, you can reach out to any legislator at any time. Find out who the bill sponsor is. Once you look that up, you can go on the legislative website for the state, get their district office information, place a call, and make the ask and just say, what's the status of this bill? I really, we love working with advocates. So sometimes too many people reaching out to a legislator in perhaps not a coordinated way may become burdensome. Again, but it's highly unlikely that 50 people are calling in a day to ask a question about the CAP bill. So I think it's perfectly legitimate for you to call and to ask for a status update, but I really would recommend reaching out to Alicia and she can provide the information to you and give you some insight as to why either it was held, died this year, what is the trajectory for next year? Are we already lining up co-sponsors to strengthen it, and how you can help in that process?
Perfect, thank you. Similar question. Corbina is wondering, is it possible that the Animal Legal Defense Fund let us know what are key issues to get involved with in each state? People are busy, understandably so. So what does the Animal Legal Defense Fund provide for members? Do we have an email that goes out? Are there portions of our website they can go to?
There are. Well, I feel like you just led me to that, Priscilla, because that was, there's a wonderful new landing page that we have on our website for legislation. I think we can share that with you as well, that link.
We'll drop it in the chat box.
Wonderful, and it's beautifully designed. It shows where we're active right now, but depending on the state that you're in, one-on-one conversations are really super helpful. If it's not a state that, again, I think there are 9 states that are on the website that show a litany of bills that we're working on in each of those states. But we've again, with our new legislative affairs program, we've split the country. So now each of us have about 12 or so states. And with that, we're becoming quite active in each of those states. Right now, not a lot of legislatures are in session, so you're not going to be receiving, a flurry of emails with updates or actions. COVID has also stymied our work this year. So any bills that really were on the move, such as a puppy mill bill in New York State, was held. And there's a glimmer of hope there. I do want to leave you with that. There's still a glimmer of hope, depending on whether or not the legislature, is going to take up the issue in the fall. But if not, we'll be back in 2021, and have great expectations there. So my recommendation is please go to our website. You can see the work that we're doing. We're also, well, I guess I can say, we're also sending out an email in the beginning of July to provide a bit of an update on our work, a first half update on the work of our legislative affairs program.
You've heard it here first. Look out for that email. Oh, this is a big one that I'm sure a lot of people appreciate or have personal experience with, but how do you proceed with your state officials when they're openly hostile to animal welfare?
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, right? It's frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating. It's disappointing and discouraging, but we are relentless. We have the truth on our side. What we are doing is right, it is just, and we know that. Not every legislator will remain in their position forever. So I think it's very important for us to be active at the local level and at the state level. Be persistent, be respectful, but persistent. Go in with your issues, smile, the killing them with kindness. It really, philosophically, there are going to be times that we just will never agree with whether it's agencies for regulation or legislators on bills. But we can try to find commonalities, and with that build relationships. And I know it's hard. Oh my gosh, I do. I know how hard it is, to always put on a good face and take the high road. But they are currently in a position where they were elected. So until that changes, then I think we just have to be persistent. And the reason that I chose puppy mills and the puppy mill issue today is because it has such broad-based support. It's not a farm animal bill, which would never move in many Midwestern states. It's perhaps not a pharma bill or vivisection bill that might get stymied in some other states. If you can find an issue, dogs, like what the common, like the most common denominator, and try to have conversations. Do they have a dog? Do you was it a rescue dog? Where'd you get your dog? We love dogs. Oh, do you consider them your family? You can have those conversations. It's really hard, but again, be persistent. You just have to keep coming back time and time again. They know you, they know who you are. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. And so kind of moving from trying to build relationships with those you disagree with to building relationships and coalition building with those who you do agree with. So there is a question from David. This is related to Canada, but I think it can apply just overall. So Ontario just passed their Ag bill in Canada. And he's wondering if you would suggest working with groups already established, like Animal Justice, or to try to create your own. We also have an additional question about whether we're working with HSUS on banning puppy mills through the work that they do. So could you just speak a little bit about collaborating with other organizations and like-minded individuals so that the burden is spread apart and you get more people involved?
Yeah. So one, coalitions are everything. We cannot do this alone. We cannot do this separately. We all groups, all individuals bring a certain element to the table. I can tell you this, the farm animal protection groups are some of the most open and collaborative organizations, individuals that I've ever worked with. I know, we're all aware of the law and the movement in Canada, and it's so unfortunate. But there are so many allies and great allies here that I know would welcome having conversations, even if it's just providing insight, historical information, best practices, etc. And so, yeah, coalitions for puppy mills. Our coalition in New York is with numerous other national and local organizations. We do always work, we welcome working with other organizations. So for sure, coalitions are where it's at.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a great point about getting local representation involved in your work. As a national organization, you definitely want to take cues from the local players on the ground putting in the work every day. So I think it's great to have that variety where you have the national support for their membership, their resources, their knowledge, but then also that local level, so you understand what's the issues in this city and the state for these communities. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could just mention on that as well. Yeah, is that we really do want to ensure that we're working with you, the advocate, as the state resident, as the local constituent. You're bringing us in, as opposed to us engaging you and saying, here's how you can help. When we're at the table, many legislators, if you're not from the state, are going to say, why are you here, national organization? You don't live here. Yep. You don't know, our area, our way. You don't know what's important to us. But as a constituent sitting at the table, you can say, no, you're not listening. This is what's important. This is why they're here. This is the change that needs to happen. So yeah, it's mutually beneficial for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. And as I'm sure everyone is well aware, there are a lot of very important events happening across the world, and that is taking some attention away from other issues. Do you have any best practices for how to pivot the conversations to advertise or promote the issue that you're trying to get attention on, while also respecting that there's a lot of important conversations happening due to the pandemic, due to the protests?
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, absolutely. And we as animal welfare have to be aware of what's happening in our world at all times. And what we're so empathetic, right, as a group, and we are social justice. So I think that it's just really important that, again, with the respect for the issues that are there and the all that's happening in the world right now, that we pause and think for a moment, what's happening in my town, what's happening in my city, my state. Should other conversations be had now that maybe we can hold off because nobody's in legislature over the summer, but we take this back up in the fall. In New Jersey, specific, just because I live here and work in New Jersey, I called a legislator this week to ask permission to send out an action alert. I was very concerned that it would seem as though we were being tone deaf and we weren't aware of all that is happening. And he supported, our sending out an action alert, which will go out next week. New Jersey, keep an eye out for that. But I think
nice that you asked.
I think it's so important. Absolutely, it is so important. So I don't necessarily think that we want to pivot from any, we do want to talk about this. We want to acknowledge all that is happening. COVID specific, that is our issue. We are pulling that in. We're oh my gosh, I feel like I'm disclosing so much. We're coming out with something soon on COVID, but more of like a strategic plan on what we can do to work to prevent this, or talk about factory farming and, you know, some of the unfortunate hotbeds that are just a potential breeding ground for further disease, not to mention suffering. So I don't think that we necessarily have to pivot away from the issues. We can talk about incorporating those issues, or perhaps holding off for a better time, because timing really is everything.
Thank you so much. All right, so I think that's about it for the questions. There's one more, and that's just about best practices. I feel like you've definitely teased out a lot of best practices when engaging with your legislatures. But for social media best practices, do you have any tips, tricks for particularly Facebook groups, engagements, tagging legislatures, tagging council persons?
Yes, don't use caps. Please don't use caps. just keep it, you know, again, light, to the point. You know, attacking a legislator on social media is never really a good thing. Just always being respectful. You can find their hashtags. It's really easy. Again, many legislators, it's Facebook or Twitter. Some folks are using Instagram, but really it is Facebook or Twitter. You can go on our account on Twitter, the Animal Legal Defense Fund. You know, some of the issues that we're taking action on, we'll post there and you can just retweet. But for best practices, I would say find your state hashtag. Like, is it hashtag NYC or NY or NJ, you know, any of the, or is it the full name of the state? Do you want Democrats and Republicans? Because I think it's important to have both. Their hashtags, I'm sorry, it's not a hashtag, their at symbol, yes, is going to be different. So include both of those. Include media. Like, again, if you're gonna post something, and you want your biggest newspaper to see it, include them as well. I wouldn't be shy. You know, I think a lot of people either get nervous or get shy, but folks have a short attention span anyway. So even if you make a gaffe, it's normal. Folks do it all the time. We all do. So don't worry too much about that. Just, again, no caps, be respectful, don't antagonize, and then just include everybody in it.
Yep, tag away.
Tag away.
Well, thank you so much, Kathleen. This was so informative, and I'm really excited to see what our attendees do. Please do email us if you take some actions from these webinars. We would love to know what you're up to at the local level. You can reach us at, you can reach me at prater@aldf.org. Kathleen, she had hers on the slide deck. You can get that again at aldf.org/webinars. I do ask, please do take that survey that will pop up at the end. It definitely helps us for future planning. And thank you so much for joining our first session of the 2020 Animal Law Summer School. I had a lot of fun, learned a lot. We will be back here on June 30th for volunteer opportunities. Tom Linney, our pro bono program director. It's a mouthful, but he's great, and he'll be talking about how to get involved through volunteer opportunities for both law professionals and non-legal professionals. So thank you so much, Kathleen, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.